Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal Show, brought to you by eBodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards. All right, folks, welcome to The Real Deal Show. And boy, I have an extra special guest. This is a guy I've been wanting to interview for quite some time. He has been a friend of mine for probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 years. I'm thinking back to 1985 when I first met him. This guy is a legend in the sport of bodyboarding in every way, shape, or form. He single-handedly brought stand-up bodyboarding to the forefront of the sport in the 80s and 90s in particular, spawning a long chain of really good stand-up bodyboarders that came after him, but he was, I think, one of the OGs when it comes to stand-up bodyboarding. You saw him all over magazine covers, advertisements, wearing his brightly colored Lycra suits and riding for the likes of BZ bodyboards, where he stamped his mark on the sport of bodyboarding from the west side of Oahu. Welcome to Danny Kim. Welcome, Danny.
Thanks, Jay. So nice to see you, as always.
It's good to see you too. Now, Danny, we haven't probably spoken in 20 years, maybe more. Is that pretty much accurate? Do you remember the last time we spoke?
Pretty accurate, because you've been like doing the world traveling bodyboarder. So
I
just been here. Yeah.
You just been there doing your thing, and we're going to get into what you're doing now and what you've been doing for the last several years since your pro bodyboarding career ended. But you are looking super healthy. Honestly, you look pretty darn similar to the last time I saw you, which was 3 decades ago. So you're doing something right, brother, which I love. And we're going to find out what your fountain of youth is. But Danny, I'm so stoked to have you on the show. And my gosh, man, you and we had so many good times back in the day, so many adventures in the 80s and 90s. But I want to go back to the beginning of your journey in the sport of bodyboarding. Obviously, you're from Waianae on the west side of Oahu, which is a really tight-knit community over there. Obviously, you know, there's some legendary surfing names and bodyboarding names that come from the west side. Tell me how you got started in the sport of bodyboarding.
Well, we lived really close to the beach, first of all. And sorry about that, but
that's okay, brother.
But so we lived very close to the beach, and we used to always go to the beach, you know, after school and on the weekends. And my neighbor, he found an old surfboard, and he let me the surfboard, and I started surfing on it. This board was just like, found it at a rubbish pile. I said, "Oh, Danny, I think you might like it." So I started surfing on it, and that was my introduction to basically riding waves.
And so then what happened?
Yeah, I mean, so right after that, you know, I started bodyboarding at this spot called Tumbleland, and it's this really shallow left on the west side. And you know, we used to like to ride the waves as far as we could. And so my friends introduced me to a bodyboard. Then I figured like, oh wow, I should transfer my surfing skills to the bodyboard. And it was really funny because one of the first boards I rode was an Aussie, believe it or not. And I stood up on the Aussie.
No way. Those are super flexible. No slick bottom on those.
Yeah, very, very, very flexible. And so I stood up on that, and we would catch the waves all the way to the reef, because the reef was shallow, it's flat, covered with limo, as you call it, like seaweed in Hawaii. And so we could like ride the waves all the way to the reef and get barreled and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, because you know, I had the surfboard and I was getting barreled at the end of Tumbleland. We call this place called Slippery Rocks. It was kind of like where the kids kind of went to. And my sister Chris and I used to surf it a lot. And another thing that I hated was that the board, I used to always get hit by the board. I got a couple of big scars on my face, you know, skags, landing on the skags. And I was like, oh, this kind of sucks, because, you know, I'm always getting lickings from that too, and getting beaten up by the surfboard. And then, I don't know, everything was just getting drawn to the bodyboard, because I could just ride the wave really far, get barreled on the reef, not have to worry about anything. And I don't know, I just was like really like stoked to be able to do that. And I used to like bounce back and forth on a surfboard to a bodyboard, but at some point I just said, oh, I'm just going to bodyboard and stand up on it. So
And I remember the early Tom Boyle videos.
Hmm.
He had some
Right.
footage of you at Tumbleland,
Right.
and you're
Hmm.
literally riding over. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
that deep.
it's very
That's
shallow.
so shallow, man. So
Yeah.
good thing that it was covered in seaweed, probably, because I'm
Hmm.
sure you hit the
Oh yeah.
bottom a bunch of times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Our elbows, our hips, my head. But the great thing about it is like, your bodyboard's soft, you get barreled, and then like after you like wipe out, you just basically slide on the reef. You don't it's not really sharp. So it's kind of like a slippery rock. That's why they
Got
call
it.
it slippery rock. And that was like one of the major reasons why we did that too, because we could ride the wave all the way and not worry about getting like hit by the fiberglass surfboard and stuff. So it made it a lot
Yeah.
funner,
Or
funner and
cut up
safer.
by the
Or cut
reef.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So now you come from a surfing family. Obviously, your
right,
sister Chris
right,
Ann
yep,
married to Ben Severson, one of the
right,
another legend of the sport,
right, right.
and your brother David, also a
Hmm.
surfer, right? So
Right.
was it from the beginning all of you would go to the beach and surf together?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, we just got so drawn into the lifestyle. I
Yeah.
mean, going to the beach, and I remember not even knowing what sunscreen was about. Just going there and just burning. My hair was actually blonde when I
Yeah,
was a
you
kid.
had Ehu hair, right?
My hair was so blonde just from going to the beach every single day. But yeah, my brother surfed, and then I kind of wanted to emulate him. And then my sister also was, into the surfing part, and then we just both went towards bodyboarding because, it was a lot of fun. And then you know, it was so the beginning of it was so new and it was so exciting. And then, we saw the likes of Jack and Ben in the magazine. Um, and Mike Stewart and Surfer Magazine. I was really fortunate because Surfer Magazine had one of the surfing issues. They had a little feature on bodyboarding, and there was a photographer out in the West Side. His name is Andrew DiBiatiaco, and he was the
Mhm.
first one who shot a photo of me at Tumbleland, and he sent it in to the magazine, and then they ran an article on the beginning of bodyboarding, just the very start of it. And I got lucky, and I got like a shot in there, like postage size stamp, and I was just
Yeah.
like super stoked. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe I got in there. So it was really
So
exciting.
yeah, so that was like positive feedback to keep
Hmm.
going down the bodyboard route because
Right.
like me and you, that was the
Hmm.
golden era of the sport. It was
Right.
growing super fast. And,
Hmm.
we were right there at like
The
in
beginnings.
at the beginning of the
Hmm. Hmm.
magazine and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And,
Yeah.
your skills were amazing. I mean, you could prone ride as well, but stand up was kind of your thing. And when I first met you, it was 19, I
85.
think 85 in Ventura,
Hmm.
California. We were there for the
Yeah.
US
U.S.
Championships.
Championship. Hmm.
And you had never, I don't think you had ever been in the mainland, much less worn a wetsuit, right? Tell us that story.
Well, yeah, I showed up in Ventura and I stayed at my auntie's and uncle's house because they lived in Camarillo. And then I remember meeting you because we both bodyboarded for Maury at the time.
Right.
And then I was in the water and I was freezing my butt off because all I had was shorts. I didn't realize how cold the water was. Then then you're like, Danny, I think you need a wetsuit. And I'm like, huh? And then you gave me that top, like the
A
jacket.
jacket. Yeah.
Oh my, you saved my butt, Jay. I was like, because I was so cold and I was like, I didn't know what it was like to be in such cold water.
Yeah.
And yeah, you saved my ass on that one because it's like I was freezing and the kindness of Jay Reel's heart, he gave me his wetsuit, and then I was like, oh, I felt so much better, and I was able to compete. So that was really
And
awesome.
then you beat me. I think I got second and you got first, I think.
Something like
I
that.
I know you. I think you won, and you were blowing minds because the surfers were
Hmm.
judges,
Right,
and they were
right.
like, "What is this guy ripping
Hmm.
on this bodyboard with no skegs?"
Hmm.
And they were just mind blown. You were doing multiple 360s, carves, turns, and
Hmm.
you were the U.S. champ in 1985, right?
Yeah, that was quite some time back, and I guess they didn't see anything like that, so it was so different for them. And they're like, oh, a kid standing up on a bodyboard, like they never saw anything like that. So, I think that helped me to get more points above everybody else, and it's more of a novelty because nobody did see that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So before we get into your transition to professional bodyboarding,
Hmm.
there you were living on the West Side, riding the different spots over there. And,
Hmm.
the West Side had a reputation back in those days as
Hmm.
kind of a tough place to grow
Hmm.
up.
hmm
Did you ever get any grief from any of the other local surfers over there for being on a bodyboard and doing what you do?
I think a lot of them like were just happy to see a younger generation succeed in that in anything, and like one of my biggest role models was Real Sun when she was alive. She kind of took me under her wing and helped us as my sister and I went to the mainland the first year. We stayed in San Clemente, but I think which is really good. But on the west side, everybody's really close and they're very family oriented. And I think like when someone does good in something, everybody's really behind them. So there wasn't really that bodyboarding, I guess you call it stigmatism, like, oh, he's
Right.
on a sponge, but
Yep.
and then I was bodyboarding Tumbleland and just getting these unbelievable barrels and just having the time of my life. And everybody was just happy to see my sister and myself like, go beyond Waianae and just leave
Yeah.
Waianae to do something. And, every time I came back home, I got so much respect from everybody. And it's just been, even these days, I see people, they remember me. I'm like, it's so awesome. I shake their hand. I'm like, yeah, right on. I said, when I was younger, and they're like, oh, we're so happy, Danny, for doing that and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's just this closeness. I mean, Waianae is a really tough place to be, but there's a lot of talent out here, and like Sunny was one of them. Our Auntie Rel, and now you got a lot of the younger generation, surfing and stuff that are doing really well.
Yeah, and of course the Kailana family
And
is
the
royalty
Kealanas,
over there,
yeah,
and
hmm
Brian
Brian,
Waterman
mhm,
extraordinaire and his
right,
dad Buffalo running that contest
right,
at Makaha every year with the big
hmm
board division. That's so cool
basket,
that they,
right,
they carry on that tradition for so many
hmm
years.
right,
Okay, so 1985, you're U.S. champ, and
hmm
you were riding for Maury at the time. So how did
right.
the transition come to you being a pro bodyboarder, because the Bud Surf Tour, well, it was then called the PSAA Tour, was
Right.
starting up in California in 1986.
It was a crazy transition period. Let me tell you. It's funny because when Chris and I went to California in '85 or '86, and we did I guess it was the pro-am in Oceanside, that's when she met Ben. So they ended up starting to go out with each other. And so, because we ended up staying at Tom Prince's house, and that's where Ben was staying. So they, became a couple.
Yeah.
And then right after that, the Bud Tour just started, just as infancy, and they included bodyboarding as part of the tour. So Ben and I, we put in the time. We basically stayed up there the whole summer, you know, um, entering the events on the tour. And it was funny because we never really had the money to sponsorship. We were just making it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did you finance staying in California all summer?
Well, I had a little bit of money, a little bit, and Ben and I kind of partnered up. And it's so funny because we didn't even have money to rent a car, Jay. We had to rent this ugly duckling, and
I
this
remember that place.
those cars are just like so weight. They're like these old rinky-dink cars, and you're not
Yeah.
supposed to drive them like too far away. But Ben and I were going all over the place, and Ben and I basically traveled together that whole summer. We stayed in California for the events, and it was really funny because all this was going on, and then we had the trade shows, and I remember going to the trade shows trying to find sponsorships at the ASR shows, and like I had shorts and a t-shirt and slippers. I had no idea what I was up against. I got in there
Right.
because of Maury Boogie, and I found a few sponsors, and that's kind of where everything started. But man, as far as like paying your dues, I remember having to sleep on the floor, traveling with Keith, and he had the bed, we had the floor because we were like the rookies, the young guys,
Right.
and they all had the beds, and we all had to chip
Yes.
in a little bit to stay with them. But
Yeah.
it was an adventure. It was really fun, and even though at the time we weren't making a lot of money or anything, just the experience and traveling with everybody was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember telling people in one of my early podcasts that my first contract with Maury, I was getting $125 a month, and that was like a big deal, right? Not enough,
Right, right,
not even close to enough to live on, but you were like,
right.
somebody's paying me to ride this
Yeah,
board. This is
exactly,
epic, man. This is the dream. I'm living the
exactly,
dream. Yeah, so I get
exactly.
it. We just scraped by back in those days.
hmm
And you might have even stayed at our place. I live with
hmm
Keith near the
Yep.
pier here in San Clemente, and
Yeah, I stayed with
I
you
think you
guys a
stayed
couple
with us a few
times.
times.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And that led to you competing on the
hmm
Bud Surf Tour. Well, it
hmm
eventually became the Bud Surf Tour
Mhm.
And how did your success go early on a tour? How did it go for you?
Early on,
Yeah,
when we had surfer judges. No, I'm
right,
just kidding.
right. So
No,
they
it's
loved
funny.
you.
Yeah, they loved me. I was winning the contest. Mike was all upset. You know, a lot of the guys was upset, like, "Oh, how can you guys overscore Danny ahead of us and this and stuff?" And you
Yep.
know, I mean, I'm not no big wave rider. I give props to Mike and a lot of the guys that ride big waves, but you know, I wasn't. Nobody else was standing up. I mean, they're doing their thing. I was doing my thing. You know, and it's like, think about it. And I even think back nowadays how I was able to paddle a bodyboard. I guess because I was young. I mean, for hours on end without fins. And you know, I mean, I used gloves towards the middle part of it, but you know, just paddling and competing with guys that had fins on was such a feat in itself. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, I mean, I wish there was those man-on-man heats like there is nowadays. I think things would have been a little bit different. Because you know when you're out in the water with guys that like maybe 4 or 5 guys that have swim fins on and paddling, you know it's a big disadvantage for myself. You know, because
Absolutely.
I'm just using my upper body. You know, and maybe kicking my feet behind, but there's no fins for the propulsion. So that was a big disadvantage for me competing with everybody else. And I remember one event I had in Oceanside, and this was like during the Bud Pro Tour. I made the final, and I paddled out during the final, but I was so exhausted. I couldn't even get a wave because the current was so strong and the waves were kind of like doubling up. And it's funny because when I came in, Chris Morrow was trying to interview me, and it's like, because I didn't catch a wave for the whole final. I was just totally exhausted.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, Dan, you didn't even catch a wave out there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, you know." But you know, that was the biggest disadvantage that I had competing against the guys that had fins. You know, um, but I loved it
Yeah.
so much. That was me. And that's why I did that. You know, that was
Yeah.
my style.
Well, the
You
other
know.
part of this is that you were riding stock boards. When it was
Mm-hmm.
Maury, it was the Mach 10 because it
Mm-hmm.
had that board was one of the early boards with
Biggest,
stringers and it was the
yeah, and big.
biggest board. It was a
Yes,
big
right.
wide board.
Mm-hmm.
So you were at a huge disadvantage, but
Mm-hmm.
in those early, very
Mm-hmm.
beginning, you and
Mm-hmm.
Keith had great success on the tour the first couple years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Keith being a drop near, he would,
Right.
you know, the
Mm-hmm.
surfers
Oh
really
yeah.
liked that upright stance, right? And
Right.
then, as
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
Mike kind of was the impetus, along with a couple other guys, to go to the judges and say,
Exactly.
"Hey,
Hey, it's
man,
not
no,
none of
you
this.
can't." Yeah, right. So that kind of
Right.
changed the whole scope of the judging.
Mm-hmm.
With Midget Smith kind of being one of the head judges, I think it changed the whole thing for you and
It did.
Keith,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned to a situation where Keith basically just said, "I'm out," and you kind of adapted. You started
Mm-hmm.
prone riding in some of the
Mm-hmm.
events. How would you decide as you went to events? Am I going to prone in this heat and wear swim fins, or am I going to stand up? And sometimes you would do both, right? You'd come in halfway through
Yeah.
the heat
Mm-hmm.
and
And
switch.
switch off. Yeah, I think a lot of it was the conditions of the surf, and you know, it's harder when the waves get bigger to stand up, and I think just you know seeing what they're judging on that day. If you know, I'm horrible going right because I grew up on a left-hander. You
Yep.
know, everything was like goofy foot. So my backhand was just horrible. And so when I used to like when we went to Sebastian Inlet or other places, I would prone, try and get to the final. And then if I got to the final, maybe I'd stand up, or I try to switch it up. You know, and
Yeah.
I was surprised. I made a few finals laying down. So I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I wasn't the greatest in laying down, but you know, I gave it a shot.
Yep.
And yeah, I did a few events that I made through the finals. So it was, you know, I'm not that bad at it, but I mean, it's just, I guess it all depended on the conditions, what kind of wave it was. Yeah. So I mean,
Well,
that's basically it.
yeah, so the contest thing, let's
Mm-hmm.
switch gears to the free surfing thing. You
Mm-hmm.
were very dynamic in the
Mm-hmm.
water. You wore the bright colored lycra, and your style of riding with the stand-up riding was very picturesque. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the photographers love to shoot Danny Kim. Now you would go out on, we'd all have these sessions
Mm-hmm.
at Insanities, which was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the main photo studio. And
Mm-hmm.
man, you used to score some great shots. And you had kind of a strong relationship initially, I think, with Tom Boyle, and then later with Vince
Mm-hmm.
Cavateo and Brian
Mm-hmm.
Beelman, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, um I guess you know, shooting standing up, it gives you a different perspective compared to the guys laying down. I mean, I've gotten some great photos from Tom Boyle, from Brian Pillman, from Warren Pritchett, from Vince Cavatello. I mean, and I don't know, just everything would line up so well. And I remember going to Sandy Beach, having to drive from Waianae to Sandy Beach. It took me about an hour to get there, but the lighting in the evenings was just so incredible.
Yes.
And a bodyboarding pipe littles with Jack Lindholm, and this guy's taking off and then riding all to the shore break and just trying to do something spectacular and just getting cracks for it and stuff. But I think everything came together because just the great photographers. And back in the 80s, everything was so fluorescent. Lit everything up. And the magazines, they're always looking for, because now it's social media, but before it was the magazines, so we always look forward to the magazines. And that was kind of like our job, to get shots in the magazines for that photo incentive and all these things, right, Jay? And
Yep.
so I mean, I think when I bodyboarded, I mean, when I look back at some of the photos, I mean, my arms are flying all over the place, and maybe I look aerobic, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing some kind of gymnastic looking type of move. I don't know, but it just all kind of came together.
Yeah, you were so photogenic in the water. You used to get some great shots. You had some covers, obviously, on the magazines, but you're right. We used to have relationships with the photographers, and we got to the point where, and I'm sure you'll agree, we knew what's the best lighting for this spot or that, and you knew that you had to wear bright colors. It was easier for them to focus, because this is before they had autofocus cameras.
Right.
And so, yeah, we sort of had a working relationship with photographers. You knew, oh, this guy's going to be at this spot at this time. Let's meet up. But one thing that sticks out to me, Danny, is one of the spots that became probably one of the most renowned photo studios for bodyboarding is on the west side. We used to call it I Don't Knows, but I remember the first day we went there, I was with you and Ben and Chris Ann and a couple other people, and we went to this little spot. It's absolutely horrendous. It's like a shore break over reef. And we said to you, what is this spot called? And I remember you said, I don't know. I'm telling you, I remember this. Maybe you don't remember it the same, but we called it I Don't Know from that point on. I credit you with naming that spot. Is that accurate? I know it's.
I mean, yeah, I remember us talking about it, but when I talked back to Ben, he goes, "No, I called it I Don't Know." I was like, "Well, whatever." But everybody's trying to take credit for that. Yeah, claim it. But it was really crazy because that wave was so picturesque. Yep. The lighting was, coming from the east, coming up and looking straight into the tube. The water was crystal clear, green and blue. I mean, even to this day, photographers go there to shoot photos, Jay. I mean,
do they really?
A lot. I mean, you go on Instagram, you'll see a lot of guys shooting there. Clark Little has shot there. I mean, that wave is so picturesque, and they just shoot a lot of empty wave stuff. And that was a hard wave to ride. I mean, if you took off on the wrong wave. I mean, I remember one day we were out there and there was like a sandbar, and there was these bombs coming in. You're just going for it. I'm like, yeah, you're crazy, and you're just going, taking off and pulling in, and that place would just explode.
Yeah, we all lost skin on that reef, but we all got maybe covers or spreads in the magazines from that place. But the cool thing is, you'd show up there, there'd never be anyone out there free surfing, because it was, like I said, crazy. A closeout over reef, man. Nobody wants to surf that. So we were out there strictly for the shots, but it worked, and
the crazy thing about that, Jay, right after we was there, I think Mike Parsons actually went there with a photographer and surfed it and got photos off that wave too.
Whoa, that's even more crazy.
Yeah,
so I'll have to ask Mike about that, because I've
seen him. Yeah, I've seen photos of him taking off and pulling in over there, because it's just so, it's like an off the wall, but but it closes out, right?
Yeah. Crazy wave. Okay, so around that time, you and I spent a winter on the North Shore in a house with some other people. We had Keith and Caven Okamura, and we had Sean Paulson, Andy Fomenko, pro surfer at the time from here in San Clemente. What do you have any fond memories of that winter? We all had some bad times and some good times staying in that house, but what memories do you have of that winter?
The memories. I think one of the funniest things that I remember was Andy Fomenko, and I think it was Keith. They had this old, I think it was an Aussie bodyboard, or the original bodyboards. And then I think it was Andy. He made this dart gun, and
Yes.
he's and they're like shooting these wads of like rolled up paper, and it was like sticking like
Yes.
darts. I couldn't believe when I saw that, and I was just like, oh, you guys are crazy, you know, it was just so fun.
Yep.
And I remember you always like you had your favorite chips and your Coke, and you know, like Jay was like, you know, that was his diet. You know, you had all your like your favorite things and stuff, and it was even fun too because a couple guys from South Africa I think stayed with us. Nigel
Nigel
Tarberton,
and Per
Nigel,
Lofstrand.
Pierre. I remember them. They were so funny. Oh my god, they're such cool guys. And yeah,
They
it
they
was a
put
fun
ball
time.
hairs in my Hostess cupcakes. I
I
don't
was
know if
gonna
you
bring that up,
remember
but I
that.
didn't want. I was gonna
Yeah,
bring it
that's
up,
a
Jay, but I didn't want to bring it
don't
up.
worry. Keith and I did a podcast. We talked about all these stories, man. It's out in the
Well,
open now.
you know, I don't feel so bad because I remember going to the shore break one day. I went to the shore break. It was small, but I just wanted to get in the water, and I came up, and then you know they had the what do you call that what do you call that deck? And so there's a shower off the deck, and so I'm just taking a shower, and then I guess somebody was peeing on me. I didn't even know about it. You know, they're all laughing about it and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
then it was just crazy fun. I mean,
yeah.
just the camaraderie, and you look back at that, and it was just such fun times back then. You know.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we didn't have a TV, so
Mm-mm.
when we'd be bored, they mostly
Something.
they would play pranks on you and me. We were the butt of a lot of the pranks, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
but the cool thing is like we lived right next to Waimea and we would
right.
be on the
Hmm.
river every time it
Oh my
broke
gosh.
open.
Yeah, I
And,
remember that.
and of course they still do that to this day. Jamie O'Brien is kind of the OG when it comes to the
Hmm.
to the river riding, I guess, these days. But yeah, we were
Hmm.
on it every time, and it was all by word of mouth. No one had cell phones or anything like that
Hmm.
back then. So, yeah,
Hmm.
man, such good times, and we had people rotating in and out of that
Oh,
house
always,
through that
always.
winter. That was the winter of 87, 88,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
just great times. So anyway,
Hmm.
back to the pro career. So how many years, Danny, did you keep at it and keep getting paid? Eventually you switch sponsors, right?
Well, I was writing for Maury, and I was trying to get them to pay me, and I guess they had all you guys already, and I didn't, you know, Keith, you, and I don't know, Mike, and all that. So, since Ben, he left Maury Boogie, and we was at the show, a trade show in Long Beach, and I guess BZ was bought out by Sentinel Foam Products or something like that. And then so you know he was able to secure sponsorship with them, and so you know I was sponsorless, and then since I was kind of like the brother-in-law, Ben suggested to Bobby Zabad because Bobby was basically still running the company, but they were bought out by a East Coast company, foam. They actually made all the foam for the boards,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, so they, you know, Ben suggested me. So they picked us guys up as their riders at the time, the pro riders. And oh, let me tell you that life was good after that. For the time that I did travel, you know, they paid my airfare, my hotel, my car, gave me health insurance,
Wow.
gave us a credit card. I mean, they paid for everything. You know, I didn't make a lot, but you know, having all that paid for and taken care of was just unbelievable. And
So
you know,
killer.
so unreal. And then you know, the crazy good thing about it was like, you know, Maury, you know, I don't know if you guys are making custom boards, but we were able to work with Greg Zabad, Bobby's brother, and that guy. I think that's one of the best craftsmen I've ever worked with in the industry is Greg Zabad, and I give props to Greg for all the success and my writing abilities because it kind of transformed me from writing the square Mach 10 to transitioning over to BZ and trying different things, you know, and working with Greg, and he surfed and stuff. He understood a lot of the concepts, and he also worked with Ben on Ben's boards. And you know, as I went more, you know, longer in my career, you know, my boards were really square in the beginning, but they started taking more of a pointier shape in the nose, you know, more of a
Yeah.
surfboard shape, more of a
Like the one
transition of a
behind you
like
right
the one
now.
behind
Yeah.
me, right?
Yep.
And I noticed they worked a lot better because the you know at the time the Mach 10 was great because that's all there was. But as I got to learn about custom boards, the shapes, I mean, it's like surfing, you know. I mean, everybody has a little bit of difference in their boards that works for them.
Yep.
And I noticed by working with Greg and Ben, because Ben is always telling me make little small increments and changes. Don't go too big because that's gonna throw everything off. I learned a lot being with BZ and writing them, and I mean the craftsmanship from Greg and all the knowledge that he helped me to to custom make my boards really helped me. You know,
Right on. And
yeah.
so how long did you keep it going, riding for BZ until you decided, okay, this is I'm done with this career as a pro bodyboarder? How'd that wind down for you?
Yeah, the thing was is that towards I won a few events. I was in a top 10 for a while, and everything was pretty decent. And then BZ, um they still had Ben, and for a few more years after that, and then they were picking up a lot of amateur riders. And I think they had more amateur riders, and then when my contract came up, they didn't want to give me what I needed to keep doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? If you guys can't, help me in that sense to continue, then I'm gonna have to get a job. And I was traveling since what the U.S. Championships was maybe I was like 15 or 16
Yeah.
up until 29. So I've had like almost 14 or 15 years of traveling with you guys, competing for a while, and the amateur circuit when Bob Thomas, in the beginning of it all. But towards the end, it's like if bodyboarding can't pay my bills, I gotta find something else that can help me survive.
Yep.
And I've growing up in the West Side, I've known a lot of lifeguards. Dennis Govea, he was one of my mentors. Reale was a lifeguard. Buffalo Kilano was a lifeguard. Brian Kilano was a lifeguard. So a lot of people were water men and women. And since I love the ocean so much, I figure that's the route I would want to take because it's like, think about it. I go to work as a lifeguard. The waves are good. I can take my break and go surfing still
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, I'm getting paid to go surf, but not compete and all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that was a transition that I had to make, and I'm happy I did because right now I'm working towards my retirement, which will probably be in a few more years, and I was able to surf like a lot of good waves throughout my lifeguarding career, and I met a lot of good
Yeah.
people, saving lives. I mean, it's like no other feeling in this whole world.
Yeah.
It's like getting the best barrel tube ride in your life and then coming out of it. It's like the satisfaction of you helping somebody and saving their life is just the most unrealistic feeling, Jay. And it's something that I
Yeah.
can't. It's that, and I enjoy helping people.
Yes.
That's something that I really do. And my sister Chrisanne, she's like a saint. She's always helping everybody. You know what I mean, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that I transitioned to because I love the ocean so much. I figure, I like to help people. I still can surf for a living and get paid, and then later on I'll have like a retirement. So I said, oh, I started lifeguarding, and I worked towards that, and I've been lifeguarding for like 32 years now.
I'm going to
So,
get into some questions I have for you about
mhm,
the lifeguarding. But
mhm,
as you wrapped up the pro bodyboarding career, was there any
mhm.
destination that was on at the top of your list as a place that you traveled?
Um, She's.
Any?
I remember when I was bodyboarding, I went to Europe for 3 weeks. I went to Portugal, Spain, and France, and I loved it totally. I mean, the people in Europe is just unbelievably nice, beautiful people. They have this aloha from Europe that they're just such beautiful people. I
Yeah.
got to surf some fun waves over there, like the sandbars. I got to surf Hossegger, really fun. Um, I got to surf San Sebastian in Spain. I saw Mandaka but didn't surf it. But just traveling to those places just broadened my perspective of the world and riding different waves. The
Yeah.
only thing that I regret, I mean, not regret, but I'm a little like maybe one day I'll work up to it. But the wave pools nowadays are just incredible. I mean,
Yes.
we had the wave pool at Irvine. I mean, I was lucky because I won that event. And Mike, I remember Mike was trying to all psych me out. He wanted me to fall, because
Wild rivers. Yeah.
yeah, but the wave was mushy, and Kelly won that for the surfing, and I won the bodyboarding.
Yep.
And the wave was like this little mushy wave. I was doing 360s on the outside and then I was carving the inside. And I won that event. But I mean, I look at the wave pool these days and I'm just floored by it.
You mentioned wave pools, and you had great success at Wild Rivers, which was one of the early wave pools back in the late 80s, early 90s. You've been seeing all the proliferation of wave pools. In fact, there's one type of wave pool that you've been to over here on the mainland, the Flow Rider. Did you
Oh
ever
yeah,
go to Schlitterbahn? Okay, so
yeah,
you went to
yeah.
Schlitterbahn with us. And there's, of course, in Hawaii, Waikai lineup. Have you ridden that one?
No, 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 not yet. No, I
Okay.
I'm just floored by what the progression after Kelly came out with his wave pool. Like everybody's making wave pools now, and
Yep.
they're having it so that the waves are barreling. I mean, I see guys pulling the barrel and just like coming out and just doing all kind of crazy things, and I'm like, wow, that would have been super awesome if we had that when we were bodyboarding. You know
Well,
that?
we do wave pool trips. We've been to
I,
Waco 11 times.
mhm.
You're welcome to come anytime. I will tell you, I broke my collarbone at Waco in September, but that was purely my fault.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, you would absolutely excel in the wave pool environment. So I hope you get to join us or at least go on your own
One
at
day,
some point.
one day,
Well,
one day. I gotta
yeah,
get back in shape. I'm an old man now.
yeah, so well, let's talk. That's a good transition into the lifeguarding career. So, obviously, you wanted to stay in the ocean. You wanted to stay involved with helping people. A lot of bodyboarders seem to gravitate towards public service jobs, whether it be lifeguarding, firefighter, police, whatever. I mean, the list is long. Ben Severson, lifeguard, Pat Caldwell, police officer, Dave
Right.
Kniff, police officer. Of course, we got Lanson and Spencer and Guillermo, all of these guys in the public service sector. And you gravitated right there towards lifeguarding. Was it an easy transition to switch? I mean, because you said you just wanted to be at the beach and help people, and that's, easy move for you, I would assume,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was pretty easy. I missed competing with everybody and seeing everybody because at that point when I transitioned over to lifeguarding, I think you guys had the world tour.
Right,
Yeah, you guys,
1994, the first
yeah,
event,
you guys
right.
started traveling. Everybody started going around the world, and that would have been kind of cool to do towards the end of my career. But I never had a chance to really do it. But that would have been a really fun thing to do. But transitioning over, having a job, it's great, but I mean, it's like not the same because it's like when you're bodyboarding, you're basically on your own schedule. You know what I mean? Like you can do whatever you
Yeah.
want, wherever you want, however you want. And I miss the camaraderie of seeing everybody all the time. It's kind of like a family. We all got together, and everybody would like, it's like
Yes.
gathering every time. And that's what I missed a lot
Yeah.
to like going to a job every day.
I agree with that. And when I started, I ended my pro career at the end of 98, and it was a really hard transition for me personally because we were starting this business, and I was basically at a desk in front of
Mhm.
a computer after living the life you just described prior
Mhm.
to that, where we would just, oh, where are we going to surf today? That was
Right,
like the biggest decision we had to make every
right,
day. So
yeah.
yeah, there is some reality to the fact
Mhm.
that man, you're going from this free and easy lifestyle to suddenly, oh, I got responsibilities, man. I got to show up every day. Now,
Mhm.
in lifeguarding, did you primarily stick to places on the west side? Did you lifeguard over there mostly?
Yeah, since I grew up here, that's where I wanted to be because I know the community, I know the waves, I know the beaches, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of times when people get into ocean safety, they kind of bounce them all over the place. I mean, I don't know why, but they do. But I was lucky. I basically stayed here,
Yep.
and I think it was an asset for them and for myself because like I said, I know the community, I know the waves, I know what goes on, and it was a lot closer rather than having to drive an hour away every day,
Yeah.
traffic and stuff like that. So it saved on just the commute and money and just the headache of driving in traffic for 1 hour.
Oh, for sure. Well, where was your favorite place to lifeguard?
I was lifeguarding at Tumbleland almost my whole career.
No way. You're home, like you're the place where you basically started your pro bodyboarding career.
Exactly. So it's like I had many fun days, during my lifeguarding career that, like good surf. Like, summer was crazy, but then when the kids went back to school, there was like empty days, so I would
Wow.
just go out there and bodyboard or surf.
Yeah.
And that was just, that was marvelous because I was basically surfing my home break all the time, right?
And were you working on your fitness too? Like, would you go for a run or a swim every day to just to stay
Always.
fit? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, about our job. It's super physical. Lansing was lifeguarding for us for a bit. Seamus was lifeguarding for a bit.
Dean Marzal, of course.
Robbie Gall, Dean Marzol, um, Fred Booth on the North Shore. So, like you said, everybody, a lot of people gravitated to these different jobs and stuff. And I guess for us, is because we love the ocean. We like to surf or bodyboard or body surf, and stuff. And Miley Beach is 1 mile each way, so it's like 2 miles. I jog the sand, work out. That's the great thing about our job is that you know I'm a lieutenant now with the ocean safety, but I still have the freedoms to do things like working out and do a water patrol and stuff. So staying in shape is like a super important part of our life as we get older too.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
It's like you see a lot of my friends. I have a lot of people that passed away already, unfortunately, and half is to do with not being healthy, heart attacks, diabetes. So the whole lifestyle, that healthy lifestyle, even from bodyboarding, we all try to stay fit, eat pretty decently, stretch. Chris Burkhardt was a stretch master. He used to like do the splits. I'd be like, oh,
Yes.
that. So it all I think helped us prepare as we get older too. We get injuries and stuff, but overall, I think fitness is super important in a person's life, the whole life.
Yeah.
Not just the beginning, but the whole life.
I'm 100% with you on that. I agree. I always talk about that. Like, you just got to keep moving. I'm 60 now,
Wow,
and
you're
I
awesome,
know
man.
other 60-year-olds. They
I
just
see you with
like,
abs. I see you with abs all the time. Yeah,
but
yeah.
it takes a lot of work, as you know, and it's a lot more work now than it was when we were in our 20s, where
Mhm,
we just go surf and you'd have a rock hard
mhm.
stomach. Now it's
Right.
like, man, I'm putting in 90 minutes a day
Mhm,
working out and then also surfing to
mhm.
like keep that level of fitness that I want. How old are you now, Danny?
57.
Yeah, so you're three
I'm
years
up there.
behind me. And are you still doing? I mean, you've moved into the lieutenant position. Are you still doing workouts and trying to stay fit quite a bit?
Yeah, even for our job, every year, lieutenants and all the guards have to do a physical performance test.
Okay.
We got to run Ala Moana, we got to swim it back, and everything is timed. You get that. So the run swim is 25 minutes. Then we have a paddleboard, which is 4 minutes, and you have a run swim run sprint, which is 3 minutes. So if you fail in any one, you have to redo the test.
Wow.
So you have to stay in good shape for that, and you know if you're constantly doing stuff and staying in shape, you can pass the test. But like I think we're the only agency that does that. Fire don't have to do it, police don't have to do it, and because we're lifeguards and stuff, which I understand. But that's the hardest thing about this job is staying in shape and passing the test to stay in the job.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you're doing stuff, this test at
Mhm.
57 years old that guys that are 18 years old are doing.
Right,
You got to
right,
keep up because, like you said, you're a lifesaver. So, of course,
right.
it's critical to have that fitness level. That's pretty amazing and a good testament to you. In fact, I was going to mention
Mhm.
no gray hair. What the heck, man?
I got it. They're hiding, but I got some.
At least you have hair, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Hey, hey, you're my inspiration. Every time I see you running and stuff, I'm like, wow, that's so awesome, man.
Thanks,
Super
buddy.
awesome to see you doing
But
that.
I do still like my Cokes and my pizza. So,
Hey, you gotta enjoy once in a while, right?
and yeah, not every day, but
Yeah,
yeah, from
exactly.
time to time. So you've been lifeguarding, you said, for 30, how many years? 32?
32 years
That's insane. And retirement, is that in your future soon?
soon. Yeah, I love the job. We got a really good crew out here, as all the other districts have. Lifeguards. I mean, hats off to all first responders because a lot of times guys are always risking their lives, their safety to help other people. And I love the job. And I hate the politics sometimes, but I love the job. I
Yeah.
love helping people. I love our crew on the beach. And it's something that I'm taking year by year. But at some point in time, I want to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And maybe do some traveling, and maybe I even go to the surf ranch with you guys or something like that one day.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, it's just it's a beautiful job. I got retirement, and stuff. And so I have some money coming in later, and then I can maybe travel and do something different. But something to look
Yeah.
forward to at least.
Yep. Yep. I hear you. Now, where are you living now? Are you still in Waianae?
Still in Waianae. I
Yeah.
live in an apartment with my pooch, my dog, and
What's your dog's name?
my dog is Buddy.
Buddy.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I call him Buddy. Wait, hold on, let me grab him. Come here,
Yeah,
Buddy.
let me see Buddy. What kind of dog is Buddy?
He's a Bichon,
Ah,
little dog.
how cute. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. That
I
is
know he's supposed to
such
be
a
the
cute
chick
dog.
magnet, but he's not doing his job, unfortunately.
How old is Buddy?
Like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so you're
yeah,
living still in the same area you grew up in.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
And
And yep.
right,
And
sorry.
are you still bodyboarding and riding surfboards? Are you still doing both?
I mostly surf.
Yep.
It's a lot harder to bodyboard these days because it's like I couldn't. When I look back at when my younger years, like I remember bodyboarding at T Street for hours and hours with you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like nothing. You're just paddling. I mean, now I'm like I'm paddling for about 40 minutes or so. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sore. It's
Yeah.
just when you're young, you bounce back and you have so much energy. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it gets harder as you get older, but I try to stay active. I go
Yeah.
fishing, I go surfing once in a while. I've got to work on the bodyboarding. I got to get in better shape for that, but hopefully soon I can come up to the ranch with you guys one day and catch a few waves.
We would love that, man. We're actually going on the 13th of December, but it's freezing. It's going to be
Oh, no way.
absolutely brutally cold. Yeah, this will be
Wow.
our what we call our surf ranch roundup. This
Wow.
is our yeah. So we're getting all the wetsuit gear together. So
Mhm.
yeah, someday we would love to have you on that trip. We had Keith come to Waco
No
with
way.
us, which was awesome. He came with us a little over a year ago, and he had a blast. He wants to come back. So
Yeah.
do you keep in touch with all these old friends of ours from back in
I,
the day? Some of
I,
them?
I see Ben a lot because he's married to my sister.
Sure. Yeah.
I see Keith once in a while.
Yeah.
Not that often. I see Dean a lot. He lives out in Waianae also.
Yeah.
So,
And he's
uh,
retired now.
and then Lanson, I see him on calls sometimes because he works for the fire department with
Yep.
Seamus. And but as far as I either see them, at the beach somewhere, or like a lot of them are first responders. I see them at a call, but I don't keep in touch with them as much as I would like to. I mean, I used to
Sure.
always tell one of the Brazilians that I forgot what his name was. He's bald. I forgot his name.
Marcelo Pedro?
Marcelo. I used to always tell Marcelo it'd be so cool if all the guys from the past could come together and have something and see everybody. I
I
think that would
know.
be such an awesome what do you call that?
Well, they like a seniors masters event, like they have it in surfing. They have
Yeah,
the
yeah, that would be cool.
masters surfing events, and they did one year at Pipeline. They
Hmm.
had like a Legends Heat, and I
Hmm.
remember like Eppo came over for it, Steve McKenzie, a few of the old school guys, but that would be cool to get some of
Hey,
those.
but no pipeline. I want something funner, like I'm going to
Same
wave.
here. Yeah, I don't. I'm no big wave guy. I never
Me
was,
neither.
especially now. Like head high, maybe a foot or two overhead. That's
Yeah.
enough for me, man.
But that
Um,
would be awesome
yeah,
if they had some kind of get together, like they said, a Masters with
I
everybody
agree.
come over. That would be just to see everybody and touch base.
Yeah.
It would be such an awesome thing to do.
Well, the cool thing is like Fabio Aquino works at
Mhm.
a wave pool in Brazil, and a
Right,
wave pool would be optimal for that, right?
right.
Because you
Everybody,
don't have to paddle and
yeah,
duck dive too
yeah,
much.
right, right.
You're not going to get killed.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fun.
that
I've
would
seen
be.
footage of him bodyboarding that wave. It looks unbelievable.
Yeah, there's so many good wave pools out there now. And they're just like you said, they're just more and more every year. It's so fun. And I'll be honest with you, man, one of the attractions to me is you don't have to battle with people for
Oh,
waves. Everybody
oh,
takes a turn and
yeah.
everyone gets a wave, and it's not like some 14-year-old grommet paddling circles around you to get the wave from you.
I think that towards the end of my career, I mean, I was still bodyboarding and surfing and stuff, but I think I shied away a lot from paddling out on the lineup these days because of that. I mean,
Right.
everybody gets so amped and so mad about a wave, and it's like when I was
Yeah.
growing up, I mean, everybody took turns. Like okay, you go, okay, I go, okay, you go. I
Yes.
mean, But nowadays, everybody wants to catch every single wave, and it's
Yeah.
like we're out there to enjoy ourselves, and people are getting all aggressive, want to fight for a wave, and I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know if I can do it, you know?
I think, we're not alone. I mean, that's kind of how it works out. Most people, not everyone, but most people, as they get older, they're done
Mhm.
with that. They just want to, they'll go surf another spot that's not as good,
Yeah.
but it's uncrowded, and they'll just get waves and have fun. Because we kind of go back to why we started riding waves, because it was
Right.
fun,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it was an escape, right? And if
Right.
you're out there battling with people, like I remember the days at Pipe or even off the wall,
I
there's
remember that.
50, 60
Crazy.
guys out, and you're trying to get a photo in the magazine, and you'd come in, sometimes I'd be more stressed out when I'd come in and angry, right?
Yeah.
I'd go out of Pipe for 4 hours and catch one or two waves and just come in pissed off.
I
And
know. It's just,
I'm over that now, and you
it
are
defeats the
too.
whole purpose of riding a wave. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's what I think I got turned off about it. And it's like everybody's so aggressive these days,
Yeah.
and that's why sometimes, like like you said, I go out like 2 foot something somewhere, and it's just even though wave isn't a perfect wave, it's fun. You're riding a wave, you're getting a
Yep.
peace of mind. And that's what drew a lot of us to riding waves. I think
Yes.
is,
We're in
is
the
having that enjoyment, that fulfillment, right?
Yeah, we're
You
in the
know,
same exact mindset when it comes to that. I totally agree with you on that, Danny. Um, so you, just to back up just a tiny bit,
Hmm.
you paved the way for the stand-up riders, but there was a couple other guys. I'll name Bonga Perkins, who
Right?
was one of the early stand-up guys.
Uh-huh.
Dennis Govea, you mentioned West Side Lifeguard. I remember in the first Pipe event, him and Chris Lavoie. Chris Lavoie in particular would do stand-up bodyboarding. And then, of course, your contemporaries, guys like Kevin Yap, who was an
Yeah.
amazing stand-up guy, and there was a couple others out there.
Swan
Yeah, yeah, Chris Wan, who he's
still
still
going.
a legend. And yeah, I mean, it's so cool. But what do you like? Do you have any of the modern stand-up riders that you like to watch?
Yeah, there's a kid named I forgot his name, but I gave him one of my custom boards. His name is
Shane,
Kane. He
right?
bodyboards quite well, standing up, and he's good on backside too, which I've been enjoying his riding.
Yep.
But it's funny because there's not very many. There's only like a handful of kids that are really doing it. And yeah, I think Kevin and Chris, I think when we were all doing it, everybody would kind of push each other, like
Yeah.
try to outdo each other and some in a good way to try and surf better and stuff. And Chris rips, Kevin was ripping. So
Eddie
yeah,
Searfoss, that name comes to mind. Ed Searfoss. I don't know if you
mm,
remember him.
I don't remember that
And
name.
nowadays, you have Matt Crilly and
Right,
Sammy Moratino, who rips.
right.
Yeah, but of course, Shane, by the way, his Instagram is Shane
And
Boogie.
Boogie, right.
But I got to tell you, and Chris, of course, still rips, Chris Juan, but there's this guy in El Salvador. His name,
Oh, I've heard of him.
have you seen this guy?
Yeah, he's good.
Zancudo?
Yeah.
That guy Zancudo, man, that guy is mind-blowingly good at stand-up riding. And I would love to
Uh,
believe that you were an impetus behind a lot of these guys. And have you seen Zancudo's riding on
I've seen
Instagram?
some of his stuff on Facebook. Yeah, he's really
Yeah.
good. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
really
going
good.
to El Salvador for the sixth time, I think, coming up here
Wow.
pretty soon. And we always see him out there. He's absolutely amazing. That guy's,
Wow.
it just reminds me of, back in the day when you and
Yeah,
Chris Wan and all these other guys were dominating stand-up riding. It's good to see some
mhm.
people,
Still
and you
doing it.
mentioned only a few, but they're
Yeah,
still carrying the torch for stand-up, as
right.
it's now called Stoogie, right?
Stoogie.
What do you think of that,
Ah,
Stoogie?
I heard that. I'm like, Stoogie. What's Stoogie?
You were the OG Stoogie guy, so I
Oh
love to
boy.
hear that, man.
Yeah.
So now, as we get towards the end of this, I want to ask you, where do you see yourself in 10 years? 67 years old. Will you still be surfing and hopefully retired and just living life? Will you be married? Will you still be single? What do you think?
Oh wow.
A lot of
Hard to
questions.
say. I'm
Yeah,
looking at my crystal ball here.
right.
I think just getting out of my job, retiring, and hopefully traveling and being able to see everybody again. Because I know you guys travel to all these different wave pools.
Yep.
Um, it'd be fun to see Ben come along because Ben is basically retired. He's not doing too much. And now Ben has a place in Washington, and him and Pat keep in contact, which is
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
But I think it would be kind of cool, as I get closer to my retirement, having the freedoms to travel again, and maybe even going to Europe and seeing the events there, and just spreading my feelers out. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
people, because I it's weird because back in the day everything was the magazine because we had no social media. You know,
Yes. Yep.
now I have social media like Facebook and Instagram. I get people reaching out to me from like halfway around the world. And I'm like, whoa, just like, hey, Danny, I remember you. Da, 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 da. I'm like, guys,
Yes.
explores
Isn't
me,
that cool? I love that. They'll
Yeah.
send you pictures of yourself probably
Yeah.
and on
hmm
Instagram or Facebook. And, oh, look at this shot of you from the magazine 30 years ago. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
cool,
And
right?
there, I met a guy. I think his name's Peter. I think his name is Peter Donahue or Don something. I got on my phone, but he's from I think either from Portugal or Spain, and he sent me a picture of him and I together. He took a picture when I was in Europe, for the 3 weeks of him and I standing together. And he reached out to me on Facebook, and I'm like, and he's all grown up, he has kids, he's married. He's like, Danny, you remember me? And I'm like, oh, I feel so honored and humbled by seeing all these people like remembering us and stuff. It's it's just like a tight knit family. It's
I
like how
agree.
everybody kind of like remembers each other and
Yeah.
reaches out and stuff. And I think that's like the happiest I am, you know, um, when I post stuff, and if somebody's like, oh, you posting stuff of yourself again, I'm like, no, it's just back in the nowadays there is no magazine, but back in the day we had a magazine, and it's kind of, I just like to share to all the younger generation what we kind of had,
Yes.
like the pictures, and because we didn't have social media, everything was the magazine,
Yep.
everything was magazine, and
Yeah.
that's how we made our livelihood, is like getting photos in the magazine and doing that. So
Yep.
that's
It
why I like
was
to post stuff. It's kind of cool.
It is. It was so different then, because we would go in these photo shoots and they would shoot a roll of film, 35
30.
millimeter film, like 36 exposures. You had no idea if you got a good shot or not until they would send it to the lab, and a couple days later you'd
Yeah.
see the film or the slides and hope that you got a good shot. So it's
Mm.
so different now with digital photography. Like literally instantly they can look and see if they
So
got the shot.
so
Yeah.
amazing. And now you put a card in the camera, Jay. You can shoot 1,000 photos. And tell me what,
No.
out of 1,000 photos, you're not going to get at least a couple hundred or 10 or 20 of.
I know. And the lighting doesn't matter anymore. Like it can be an overcast day and they can get epic shots and fix it
Yeah.
afterwards on the computer and make it look like it was sunny. It's such a game changer. But man, such good memories of our days, the heyday of bodyboarding. And you mentioned, people sending you pictures. I just went on a trip to Indonesia in November of
Mhm.
2024, and there was a group of French bodyboarders that showed up at the same time as us, and we stayed at the same resort. And he said, I met you in France 32 years ago, and here's a picture of me with you and my brother. And
Oh,
he was like a kid, like a 12-year-old kid. And here we were 30 some years later. So it just goes to show that our bodyboarding world is such a tight knit
amazing.
tribe, if you will, and that bond will kind of remain forever, which is really cool. I love that about our sport.
And I still keep in touch with Vince and Brian. I
Yeah.
constantly talk to Brian, and so it's like, and even when I talk to Brian Billman, he's like, oh man, Danny, those are like the best days. Like we're like close, and we had so much fun together. I mean, even he reflects back to those days of bodyboarding.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
we all have fondness for our youth, right? But speaking of photography, you're doing photos, Danny.
yeah.
Do you have a
Sometimes,
website for this? Do you have a
uh,
website?
yeah, I got like Danny Kim Photography 808 on Instagram, or Danny Kim Photography on Facebook. But I was shooting like a lot of empty waves, and then Clark Little came along and just blew the door open with all his stuff. So I like, okay, I had enough of that. But I really enjoy taking pictures. I take pictures of my friends' weddings and graduation pictures, and people offer to pay me, but a lot of times I just do it for free.
That's
Just
cool.
Yeah, and I just enjoy it. I always love, we were in front of the camera, and it's kind of cool to be behind the camera now.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just do it for fun, but it's just
Yeah.
it's fun to do.
Just a hobby.
Yeah,
Good
it's a
man.
hobby.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm so glad that we got to, recapture some of
Yeah,
the magic of our old days.
I
Is
know.
there anyone you want to thank or give credit to as we wrap this up?
Yeah, just everybody in the bodyboard community, people that have reached out to me through the years on like Facebook and Instagram. The Lord, kept me safe. The Lord Jesus kept me safe all these years. I've almost died in the ocean so many times. It's unbelievable.
Well, like doing
You
rescues or surfing?
just yeah, so, I don't surf big waves, and having to paddle that pipeline is always scary for me.
Yeah,
But just all those instances where getting hurt in the ocean and getting held under long,
yeah,
just things like that I reflect back, and just the Waianae community for always being super respectful to me and always showing the aloha, and for people like you, Jay, for continuing the bodyboarding legacy. You know, to
thanks.
see you out there all the time just is an inspiration to see you ripping drop knee still yet, Jay. I'm just very impressed.
The knees still work, thankfully. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
just everybody, I'm just so stoked that we finally got to meet up and talk and you know see that you guys are doing really well and your kids are growing up and everybody's safe, and it's just awesome to see
thanks.
all that. I I,
Yeah,
I I take such pride when I see my friends accelerate in life, and I think
yeah.
you're one of a good exception. All you've had this aloha in your heart ever since I've known you, Jay, and I thank you for giving me that wetsuit at Ventura.
Damn, you beat me. Nah, that's cool, man.
But
I
yeah,
remember that visit.
your kindness is always gone, and you show me aloha from the mainland side from Maryland, and it's so awesome to have our friendship all these years and just to connect with everybody. So
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we haven't talked for more than 2 decades, and here we are. It's like we just saw each
yeah,
other yesterday, which I love.
yeah,
Let's keep staying in the water. Let's keep riding waves. I'm going to just keep moving, and I know you are too.
yeah.
And let's not wait 20 years before we speak again. You
I
got to go
know.
on one of our trips with us.
Well, what we gotta do is we have to get somebody to organize something at a wave pool where
Yeah,
everybody can just come.
we
You know,
can
I
do it. Actually, we can do it, and Waco would be the perfect spot to do it. So I will put that on my list of things to do. I'd love to make that happen.
I think it would be an awesome gathering.
Yep,
International, everybody, all the
I
guys that we
agree.
competed against. I guarantee the guys from Brazil would come.
Yep,
And guys from Australia. I just would be such an awesome gathering to see everybody.
I agree. That's a great idea. I will. I'll definitely talk to Vicky about that.
Okay, great.
So I'm gonna wrap up the show, and then I'm gonna shut off the recording, and let's just chat real quick because
Okay,
I just want to, thank you afterwards. So, folks, I want to thank everyone for watching on YouTube and listening on the audio podcast. This has been a great time with my old friend Danny Kim from Hawaii, stand-up legend in the sport. And Danny, thanks so much for your time, buddy.
thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
No worries. So, folks, if you like the show, give us the thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time on The Real Deal Show. And as always, we will see you in the surf.